And when I got to be a teacher, I wanted to gamify learning. So I started doing stuff like this. How many people have done, whether it be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or Jeopardy or whatever, right? And in reality, this is, I would say that this is the most basic gamification you come up with. Basically, it's like a quiz or some sort of like question and answer experience, but like, oh, you could pick a number. Well, kids obviously today are born gamers. They're influenced all over. My older son playing rock band with me. He was a terrible vocalist, but we would play anyway. Kids today play games. Pokemon Go, when it came out a few years ago, the interesting thing was that almost 3 million miles were walked in the first 6 weeks of that game coming out. There is giant appeal. And the game, literally, you walk around, you throw, I mean, like, come on, we've all seen or played or whatever. Like, it takes over. Minecraft, obviously big in education. Fortnite, I don't know if we've seen a Fortnite angle for ed tech yet, but I'm sure it's coming. And of course, I've seen multiple articles talking about how to take Among Us, which is the newer trend, and work that into a collaborative experience. And, whether you gamify those things in your life or you gamify your own health and workout, that's it. All right, go with me back to 2006. I was working as an adjunct professor, and I had to teach a class about gamifying learning. And one of the things we talked about was gamifying math. And I had a student who had dyscalculia working, and I created over the weekend. My wife was working long hours, and I was like, I'm going to make him a board game. So I made this custom game by hand. It's like ridiculous amount of effort. And I was so excited and I was so proud. I'm like, this looks like I could get it at a, Toys R Us. Now I'm really dating myself, but I play it with him, and day one, he was stoked. Like, this game was awesome. You would roll the dice. You would then move those number of squares. You would pick up a card, and you'd solve a math
I'm playing 20.
And then you'd roll again, and you'd solve a math problem. And very quickly, he realized this is the worst game ever, because it is literally chocolate covered broccoli. It is gamified worksheets, right? It's lipstick on the pig. And kids know, like, they totally know when you're giving them this type of an experience. So gamification is a lot more. There's a whole concept and theory behind how to gamify education. And, you could go deep onto any one of these little bubbles here, whether it be about the students' personal development through the game, building skills, having different success metrics, competing, completion processes, all sorts of different things. But with Breakout EDU, we took an approach that was a little different. So Breakout, the motto is, it's time for something different. And Breakout EDU unlocks the love of learning through games. These are collaborative experiences that are built for students to work both in person and online to build the SEL and 4C skills while studying and working on content-based knowledge. So the games have been played by millions of kids all over the place. We're really excited about it. If you see, how many people have played a Breakout EDU game, like a physical box-based game, a kit-based game?
Yep.
I see Marcel. Yep. Okay. Narita. Awesome. So very cool. And a thumbs up. Petrie. I know Anne has. All right. Cool. It looks kind of like this. I know when I see this picture today, I'm like, wait, they're too close. They need masks. What's going on? So it's like, but this in my head is like, it's not a staged experience. This is literally what it looks like when kids are playing. It is something that they really love doing. This year, of course, we've been thinking outside the box. So I'm going to focus more on some of the newer stuff we have, which is the digital version of the Breakout EDU platform. I'll share how you can find games. I'm going to share how you can copy games and edit them and assign them and all sorts of things. So the game refresh happened in August. For those of you that are users or are paying attention to Breakout EDU, this is what our games used to look like. They were not the most exciting things in the world. And they were, better on PC than they were on other devices. Completely changed the story here. They're much more immersive. They're able to be used on any content, and we have 800 of them. Most of that 800 games is content aligned to either Common Core standards, next generation science standards, or aligned to a topic that you would teach in the core subjects. So that means that basically if you're teaching any subject in science, let's say you're teaching 5th grade and you're doing a lesson on, whatever it may be, I'll show you how to find a lesson that will be perfect for both a digital game, as well as if you do in person or you're able to come back in the early part of next year, a physical based game as well. This is what it looks like. It is super fun. And, I actually walked by my son's room the other day. He's across from my office over here. And he was playing a game in his class. And I'm like, I can't believe you're playing a game. And he's like, oh yeah, we play it every Friday. And I'm like, you've never told me. Like, it's January. So it is something that is something that brings a lot of joy to both kids playing it. And obviously, as someone who's working on this, I'm really proud of the fact that we have comments like this coming out, which is really important. This person tweeted out, students I haven't seen talk all year, heard talk all year, were leading discussions. And that's really the interesting part and the beauty of Breakout EDU. So some of you are saying, all right, well, what is it? Let me go and switch my screens over here, and I'll show you a bit about the platform. While I do so, is there any questions so far?
No, it's going great. Thank you, man.
Yeah, sure. All right, so let me get over to
Adam,
our
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Go for it.
I'm a high school teacher, and what I'm really interested in is getting my high school students to create games based on what they're learning in history. How easy or difficult is your platform for students to do that?
Well, it was designed to do just that. So let me take you through that a little bit, and then I could show you how to do that. We have, not only do we have the ability for kids to do that, we have the ability for you as the teacher to kind of give them feedback. Then they can turn it back into you. And if you approve the game, it can be played by every kid in the class to kind of challenge them on that topic. So I know there are some use cases where teachers are saying like, hey, you know, Chris, you take unit, and Susanna, you take unit 2, and the kids are actually assigned the, you know, kind of as a project to build that game for the rest of the class to kind of build as review. So I'll show you how to do that. There's also courses. One of my favorite parts about the platform, and I will show that to you in a second, is that there are courses explaining how to build the games. So it's not just the tool itself, but we're actually really excited to have a a series of videos and tutorials that make it really easy for the students to understand how to build a good game, because we don't want them to take, you know, chapter 5's review questions and make them multiple choice questions here. That's the big difference between Breakout, is it's still, it's not a worksheet. So a thumbs up if you can see the screen. Yep, awesome, thank you. Alrighty, so here's what I wanted to share with you today. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about how to find games, and then I'll dig into the game builder itself. Is anyone else looking to build games on the platform? Thumbs up, okay, awesome, very cool. Susanna's like, maybe, I don't know. Let me show you how to do it. I'll start with a brief overview, all right? So I've logged in over here. You'll see the main part of the screen is related to these content tiles. So if you wanted to explore, let's say you're teaching science, right? So you go into science, I'm teaching 2nd grade. This is gonna pull up, basically aligned to next generation science standards, all of the topics in the most traditional sequence. Obviously it's not everybody's sequence, but the you know, basic sequence that we've seen from the majority of the textbooks. This is kind of the way the courses are laid out. Of course, you could search all these. They're basically by standard. You would click into any of these games and be able to kind of go in and assign those games to your students. But you also can go in and look over here on the search bar. So if I was looking for a game, let's say on, I'll go to math, I'll say fractions, right? So I go to fractions, I press go, and then these are games that either are based solely on fractions, and then they give you the standards that they hit over here, or fractions is part of the game. So it could be that 2 or 3 clues are part of that game. There are lots of them. So for example, I believe it's 10 games a page. So there's 60, or roughly 60 games that deal with fractions. If I want just the digital games, notice this one says digital over here, and this one says kit required. If I want just digital, I just go to digital, and it'll automatically just filter those out. So clicking on one of them, I'll bring you into it real fast. I'm logged in, so I have a couple of cool features that I can do easily. As I said, we have 800 digital games and 800 physical games. So 1,600 games, it's a lot of games. If I find one that I'm excited about playing next, I can go over here and bookmark it really easily. And there's a way to get back to it through the My Accounts and go to your bookmark games. I could see, of course, again, the standard, the grade level, content area. Copy the game will actually make a copy of this and allow you to edit the game before you send it to your kids. So the cool thing there is, like, let's say your kids are in 3rd grade. So they're not doing all of this topic yet. You're trying to introduce some of the fraction ideas, but you don't want to have them do addition of fractions or multiplication or whatever. So you could actually edit out that question, change the question, remove the question, etc. You could also assign it. So if I click assign, all of the classes you set up through here, and I'll show you how to do that. You can click on the name of who you want to send it to, click assign, And now those students, when they log in, have access to the game ready to go. And we recently added, thanks to Patty on our team, an answer key. So you could very easily get to all the answers. We have the answers on the screen here, but some teachers were like, hey, it would be really cool if I could just print them out so I had them as I walked around, or had them so I could facilitate from home. So each game is based on a story. Our games, as I said, it's not a multiple choice quiz. It's not something where it's like, hey, answer the questions because that's what the goal is. Here it is set up where it's like, there is a challenge. You have to help mom in this case, who's planning for this big party, but she needs your help to cook and all the pages are stuck together or whatever it is. You have to help break out the cookbook or whatever the story may be. This gives you, of course, the lock combinations. So that's the answer key for the teachers. And more important than the answer key is, how do you get those answers? Because sometimes all of the games are based on logic and they're not arbitrary. So these are kind of explaining to you how you would find them. You use the cipher and it tells you, exactly, because I feel like with students, it's getting the right answer is only part of the fun. Understanding how the right answer is arrived at is really the challenging part here. We also have reflection questions. So these are questions that are specific to the topic that's being reviewed or taught during this game. So if it's about fractions, we have things like how can you use a mode to multiply a whole number? These are all these different types of things that, again, they relate specifically to the content that is addressed in the game. They're great for after the game, as well as the 4C cards activity. With the purchase of a kit, you get a deck of cards, literally it's cards that have questions for each of the 4Cs. So collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking. You have all of these great questions. It's like, hey, how could you be a better collaborator? Or shout out who in your team was a really great communicator, or like all these different things that relate to the content. And there's also activities that are creative where they can have either worksheets or online experiences that kind of deepen the learning after the game. So you're like, all right, fine, but what does the game look like? So Susanna, who is like, I don't know if I want to make a game, let's see what the games look like. They're all relatively simplistic in their look and feel. And the nice thing is that the content itself is not the driving force here. We're not trying to be, the same way Minecraft's like this 8-bit experience, we're not trying to be the PS5. What we're trying to build is the communication and collaboration skills amongst the players. So what I'd like to do is take you through one of the games we created for back to school this year. It's called the Faculty Zoom, and I'm actually gonna let you guys play 1 or 2 puzzles if that's all right. So this is a game, it'll be available. I could share this afterwards as well. But basically it says, welcome back to school. Last year was certainly interesting. And this year, maybe if you have a few challenges as well, working together, you created this learning environment that's ready for your students' academic and social emotional needs. We've captured some of the great plans and each of the departments has designed for the coming year. We know that by working collaboratively, you'll be able to bring the fun and engagement back to your learning and unlock students' full potential. And so I'll take you into the first block. And it says over here, science teachers from the Dmitry Mendeleev School meet to discuss how to introduce the elements to elementary students. So there's a combination over here. This combination, I click on the keyboard, or if I just tap over here, it'll bring it up. This is letters. And this is the piece of content that you have to figure out. So the letters are the clue. And I just made it full screen. What I'd like you guys to do is if you can unmute and just, there's no wrong logic, and everyone will probably be wrong for a little bit. So think about what it might mean, what you would want to try. And I'll be your hands just for now. I know in Zoom you can assign the ability for people to take over and put in the answer. I'll do the Vanna White roll just for the moment. But of course, when you play with your kids, it's very much this type of setting where it's like, all right, guys, we got to help them. The teachers are stuck. We got to fix it. What do you think we could do from this?
Send us a balloon.
This is no Wizard of Oz.
Hey, I'm looking at colors. I'm looking at the first letter of people's names, wondering.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the colors on the table match the colors of a person's outfit. Those are my first wonderings.
I like that. I like that. So you notice the person's name, colors. So interestingly, I like that. I see green. Some of these colors I don't know if I see on the table. And remember, the clue is going to be letters. So ultimately, you're going to have to put something in that is letters. So throwing it out there. But I love that you shared that. Thank you. If you look at, let's see, anything different about the names? Anything you see there?
Some of them have numbers and some of them have letters.
Gotcha, that makes sense. I wonder if that could have anything to do with it.
So like P3 is yellow. What could we match that up with?
Some names might have a last initial, like Chad R and Carl W. And Adam B.
Cool.
Adam B is like maybe Atom Bomb.
There, yeah, that could be it.
Plutonium.
The ones that
You
have
guys are doing a really
numbers,
good job. Yeah, what about the numbers?
the ones that have numbers only have 2 digits.
So what other clue on this screen? It's actually a fairly large part of the screen. Are we not using yet? So everyone's been focusing on the names, which is cool. And you guys notice that the names have numbers. That's important. What else do you see on here that might be helpful?
Periodic table. Yeah.
Ah, the periodic table. So I know it's a science clue, but let's do some math and put those two things together.
Maybe, no.
Oh, say it. It might spark someone else's idea. That's the best part
No,
of
it's
this.
not. I was gonna say, no, I'm not even gonna say it. I was gonna say 94, maybe if we count 94, but there's not even 94 squares there, so.
Maybe the number goes with one of the elements.
I like that idea.
The color could go with
Bueno, vamos a algo más por estos grupos. Bien, qué bien. Aquí
Yep.
estamos afuera.
So if I went over here and I typed in periodic table,
Ahorita, este momento.
let me just pull that up for us so we can see it nice and big.
¿No? ¿Por qué no? ¿Qué no
So we
está
see over here, what number did we started with 94, someone was saying?
Ah, no bajamos
Yeah,
la.
94,
There's a group number and then the row.
Segura.
Aquí solamente hay
Okay,
Bueno.
so 94 is over here, right?
Or PU.
EU. Okay,
Cómprela, cómprela.
I'm sorry, it's really hard to hear for the people that are unmuted and having side conversations.
yeah,
Yes. Please,
Mute that
please
person?
mute. Yes, please mute if you're not part of the conversation. Thank you.
I just muted a couple people that were unmuted. Feel free, obviously, please to unmute. I didn't mean that to be rude. So, all right, so we said PU is 94. All right, well, that's a good start. Let's see. So I can come over here and do PU. Still got a ways to go, right? So what's the next one we would try?
32.
32. Down here, did we miss any?
We missed 75, and I would.
75.
Yeah, 75.
All right, so we have 75.
RE.
That's, yep. All right, I have to remember which tab I'm in over here. All right. And then you said 32.
Yeah,
Yes.
All right, 32.
there's a 28 as well.
All right, so we have GE, and then 28 is what?
28 is NI.
Yep. Anyone want to guess the last one? This is like playing Wheel of Fortune.
US.
S.
Yeah, I think you got it. We turn green, we go to the next slide. So what I'll do is I'm happy to walk you through one or two more puzzles. Let me see which of these is kind of my favorite one over here. I like this one a lot. So each of these puzzles, by the way, is related to a different content area. So it's just to show the malleability of the platform. The content games we have for kids are most of them are related to is more specific subject. We do have a lot of games that are great for team building in general. This one was a fun one for teachers because it lets you see like, all right, this is social studies. You basically have to look at the map, the landmark on the Zoom call to figure out the directions. This is directional. So you're going to start over here at Big Ben, and then you would move down or to the right to Paris, to the left to New York, etc. The next one over here, there's a text chat. And on the text chat, there's different words that have shapes spelled out. So great tour. Can we circle back and find a few places, whatever. So it goes through all these different fun things with shapes being listed as text. Here's a number one that had to do with the time. It says this is going to start 17 minutes after this. And we have a clock here. So you basically have a simple one where you add 17 minutes to what you see on the clock. And here's another one that I'm not going to tell you how to solve. I'd like you to solve it for us. It says the reading teachers select books from their favorite authors that will help build character. And so hopefully we can get this done.
Adam, one of the questions is how would you play this online?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple of ways to play the game. The ideal way to play it is to facilitate it through a Hangout or a Zoom. So you could put kids either into breakout rooms that are smaller and have them go with their own version of this game. Because as I said before, it could be assigned to students through the platform, as well as the fact you could do whole group instruction where you can do it this way and have either small groups come in with the center time or have the entire class activity being done this way. There's a lot of different places we've seen where teachers are coming up with the rules about how to unmute, and you have 3 times you get to unmute each, and you can kind of come up with a way, kind of a pass the conch model that allows kids to either both participate but not overshare. But the other nice thing about it with platforms like Zoom particularly is I can give, let's say I'm like, hey, Ann Kozma, you're going to take over the mouse now. And I can click over there and provide her the activity to try the puzzle. And so as the teacher, I'm giving you way more feedback and way more information than I should, because I really would let you struggle, because the puzzles are, you know, silence will dissipate and you will wind up having students jump in and try to help each other figure it out. I find that adults, we are much more reserved and much more afraid of being like, I don't want to be wrong in front of my peer group. But kids don't mind being wrong because they always think that they're right. So it's great to have them try. The nice thing about the feedback here is that these locks are, when you pull on a lock on our physical product, immediately it's like being told, nope, you're wrong. Here it's the same way. The letters just shake, or whatever the inputs are, shake red. They go blank and your turn to try again. So I'll be quiet and let you guys kind of talk through this one more time, and then I'll jump in and go through some of the other features of the platform. So what do you think we have to do over here?
I think we have to match the character that they're holding on their sign to the author of the book.
Awesome. So the inputs here are colors. What do you think we would do? Where should we start?
Well, E.B. White is first. So I think, isn't that Wilbur?
Yeah.
E.B. White.
You are correct.
Okay.
And I know Beverly Cleary is Ramona from My Two Little Girls.
There you go. So we have Ramona
right.
and we have, all right, so we have Wilbur. So Wilbur
Clifford is
over here.
Norman Bridwell. Clifford goes with Bridwell.
Ah, very good. So Clifford goes with Bridwell.
Doll, I think, is Charlie.
Charlie.
Yep,
And then,
Therefore, Lindgren had to be Annika, right?
yeah.
that's correct. So you guys got the right match, but what do you think we should try first?
The colors of the people in the background, as far as
colors
like, how they
of-
are in order of where the books are located on the bookshelf. So E.B. White, it would be yellow first, maybe.
Perfect. Yep, let's try it.
Yellow and
And then
Red.
said this was
Red.
Annika, so it's, yep.
and
And
then
all doll.
purple
Brown.
and brown.
Gray.
All right, let's see. Nicely done. It opened up. It's now going to circle back to the other ones. One of my favorite parts is, and I'll see if I can, let's see if I can solve this real fast for us. That
Adam,
would be
I
great.
do have, Adam, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I do
Yeah,
have a
no,
question.
please go ahead.
Like, I see how these are fun and, you know, like brain challenging, but is there a way to show us like a math one to see
Sure.
how an exact actual math game, like you said, let's say fractions, so we can see the teaching theory behind it?
For sure, for sure. Let me go in and grab one of those. I had opened up a bunch of links to show you different things, so give me 1 second to find where I started over here. All right, perfect. We could take a look at this one, and because this is the kind of the one we had gone through previously. Let's see what we have over here. Catastrophe. Let me see. So one of the main dishes for the party is lasagna, but one pan surely won't be enough. This one
But
is
what's the
numbers.
question? What's the question though?
So that's what you have to figure out, right? So you have the question over here is, it's basically telling you the problem set, right? So you have this clue and you have to then figure out, it's saying one of the main dishes for the party is lasagna, but one pan surely won't be enough. So if one pan isn't enough, there's a clue on here that tells you how many you have to figure out.
4 pans.
4 pans.
So 4 pans.
Yeah.
And then how do you figure out the rest of this recipe?
Are you gonna have to multiply the fraction times 4 to make 4?
Yeah.
So do you add it first and then multiply it by 4, or would you just multiply it?
Well, if it's a fourth grade standard, you would have to add it. They don't do multiplying fractions yet.
So do you want to take a guess at what it would be?
It's 3
I can
cups
cheat
sauce.
and get the answer for us. What's that?
It's 3 cups sauce.
3 cups of sauce. Okay, excellent. And then how many cups of cheese?
8/3, which is 2 2/3.
2 2/3.
All right, let me go and actually look at what we're giving for the understanding of the answer, because to be honest with you, I have not yet played this game. So let's look at the explanation before we figure it out. So for the first one was text, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that the number one? You have to, oh, here it is. Use the text clue to determine that you need to multiply the recipe by 4. Using the measuring cup shown, figure out how many scoops of each size is needed. Note that the text says to add sauce first, so the answer for the sauce is 12. And then you have to figure out that the cheese is 8 for the combination of 1, 2, 8. So we would have tried, if we had gone through this and we put in the fraction first, like we would not obviously be able to put in a fraction here. So you're able to put in whatever the number is. If you know, what did we say it was? You said it was 3, and then whatever it is, I'll put in this number. You wind up getting the answer. And the point of this entire activity is that students will then have to figure out, well, why is that not right? How do we figure this out? If you add this to the saucepan first, almost inevitably, you're going to wind up having the students say, all right, well, try that first. What is that first? And then looking over here, why are these here? You know, why would you have these measuring cups here if you're only focusing on this piece of content? And so the idea of the teacher was really to be facilitator. I mean, had I had read this particular game first, it would have been, all right, you guys struggled with it a little bit. Let's try it. No, we're wrong. No worries. If you're getting to a point where the students are stuck, we have a couple of things we do. One is that we offer them a hint. And then again, it's only when they truly need it. So you could tell your students, depending on their age level or depending how difficult you want to make it, how many hints you're wanting to give them. So, hey, gang, you could have 3 hints this period if you're stuck. And so obviously you can facilitate beyond that if you need to give them help. But what we would do over here is if you kept on focusing on the recipe, I would say a comment just like that. Hey, gang, did we notice that there's also some measuring cups on here? I see a 1/4 cup and something else. So what do you think that could mean? And so to bring the logic around, you never want to put them together for them, you know, as directly as I had done before. But the students are able to make that connection. And that's kind of where the learning both is, you know, focusing on content, but also then collaborative and able to work on all of that interpersonal stuff as well.
Adam, Jasmine has a question. Can students choose which clue to solve first, like in a real game?
So yes, there's 2 options for us, and I'll use this as a segue going into the game builder. There are different types of games. So there are games that are what we call non-connected locks, where if I got stuck on this one, I could switch over here. But then there are games that are story-based. So there are some games that actually you have to solve them in sequence. And so you would have to go through them one by one. Those games are usually built in sequential difficulty. So it's not, you know, we are cognizant of the fact that you don't want people to stall out on the first one. So you have the ability to go around and have them go through and play a story. I can show you that in a bit. Before I do that, let me kind of take you back and talk about, let's say, creating any of these games. And I think that came up as a question before. There's a couple of cool things you could do with creating games. Number one is you yourself as a teacher can create a game from scratch. So when I mentioned over here, you can copy it. This game, if you didn't like that first question, or you wanted to change the clue or make it clearer or change whatever the content was, you can easily go in, swap out the image, the text, anything you want, and then send that version of it to your kids. That said, you could also start your own games from scratch as well. So I'm going to go over here to create new games, and it's going to ask me, what type of game do I want to make? Do I want to make a game that's a single lock, one puzzle? Those are great for, bell ringers or as a exit ticket type of experience. But really what I love is the non-sequential and sequential games. Those are the ones I just described to you. So I'll do non-sequential, give it a title. So I could say OCQ. And over here, it's going to allow me to easily create the game itself. I have a description of the game. Let's say challenge for some friends. This could be the content of the game. This could be as much information as I want to provide. We have a couple of options for like just the background image. This is like a stock educational type background. And at the end of the game, what you see is you can lead them to an image. You could lead them to a link. You could lead them to a video. So let's say, Anne's here. Let's say I wanted to send them over to Flipgrid after this, and I want them to record a video explaining how they solve the problem. I could easily come in and have a link or send them an image to go click on it and record that. But we also have a standard escape room message, which is like, congratulations, you broke out. I'll leave that on for now. You could also turn on a timer or not. So I'll turn this one on just so you see what it looks like. You could change the time. So let's make this one 15 minutes. And I go to add lock. Really, really simple. This is the same thing that the students see as well. So on the editor, I can come over here and say I want to do a color. This is a color lock. So the entry will be colors. I come up with the lock setup. This is optional. I don't need to provide that for the story. So for this lock, I'm just going to do an image. Notice I can put a video, I can put text, anything I want. I'm going to drag an image that I have on my desktop over here. That one's too big, so I'm going to make it a little smaller. Give me a second. And this actually is a clue that I built for a game a couple of years ago, which is a general team building game. So I have this clue over here, and I will walk you through the solution real fast. But basically, this is a clue that is colors. So the numbers over here indicate color blending. So 9 is made up by obviously 6 and 3. So blue and yellow is green. And then the next answer is 7. So 7 would be 4 and 3, and that would be purple. And then it's green and orange. Remember the clue. And then I'm going to go over here to, let's just save and exit. You can add as many locks as you want. I'm going to save and exit it. Now I have a lock it's being saved. There's a couple of options here. Number one, I could assign it through Google Classroom. I could assign it through our platform directly. I could copy the URL and drop it into ClassLink or anything else I wanted to share it with. Schoology. I have embed code if I wanted to actually put it into Canvas or anything else. And then the students would go into the game. They'd be able to play it. This is, again, with less than 2 minutes, being able to make any clue or any game you want. I come over here, put in the combination, and then it plays like the rest of our games. You broke out, we have a celebratory screen, and then the students go back. They would be taken back to their dashboard, but you're obviously taken back to your side of the platform. Any questions on the creation side real fast?
Do they have to create an account, or can they just log in with their Google?
So they can log in with Google Classroom if you create a classroom for them.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so basically if I go over here, I can go to create a class, and what you can actually do is come over and sync your classes through Google Classroom. So I would click this, it would import whatever classrooms you want. Then they would go over, there's a different URL for the students. So it's student.breakoutedu.com. And they would go in to log in with Google Classroom,
Okay.
go in that route, or if they don't have an account, they could sign up with Google Classroom. They would pick their account and then enter a 6-digit code from your class. So it's like most ed tech tools that are like able to sync very quickly. We do have a synchronized option. We're adding Microsoft Teams. We're also looking to add ClassLink and Clever as well in the coming year. So there's going to be a lot more options to just make it easier to get them. But one of the things that I was talking about before, someone was saying, how do you make games? Well, that's how you make games for you. Students see the same thing, but what we created are these courses that explain how to do so. So I'll take you into one of these courses. Again, as I said, there's a junior course for younger learners, and then there's a regular course for kind of like 5th grade and up. So in the regular ones, let's do the first lock. there's a 8-minute video that could be assigned easily for kids. It takes them through exactly how to think through the clue creation process. So it's not a how-to video. It's more of like the cognitive understanding. So when you were like, I don't understand, I'm looking at 2, measuring cups and I'm looking at a recipe, and, if I didn't start talking and let you guys struggle for 5 minutes, you would eventually started coming up with tons of ideas on how to do that. This takes the kids through the process of like how to think through giving the content without making it a straight up math problem. So let's take a look over here. We have, hold on one second.
Adam, we have some people like the link. I think they're trying to access it as you're going through.
Sure. So this is a link for post sign-in. So the link that you would sign up at breakoutedu.com and just create an account. Some of this stuff is behind what the paywall. So basically with a paid account, you get the ability to make the games. I can give you a link to some sample stuff as well. So just hold on for that in a second and I'll find it as soon as I wrap up. And I'll give you both a link of the sample game creator, game courses, and anything else you guys might want. So this provides over here a teacher's guide. This is literally the script that we use in the video because some teachers actually like to go and teach through the content themselves. There's the ability to look at this as a download. You could actually find a link to a game that lets the kids practice the topics that were talked about in the video. Then there's even reflection questions for this type of activity, this topic. And then the students can have a Google slide activity or a PDF that they can actually print out or do at home using Kami or whatever tool they want, as well as an extension game where they kind of take the skills a level further. The whole idea is that they're able to kind of learn how to make the tool or how to make these games. And then they use the tool that's available to them. As you saw, the tool is very simple, but the concepts behind it, going through this course, this could be assigned. We have a lot of kids that do this both as an extension activity in the classes. We have a lot of schools that are using this actually as a club. So they're having like game design club and a whole bunch of different other use cases for this. As I mentioned before, students that are assigned this as their cumulative project for that section. So that's a little bit more on the game creator and the game course. Any questions there before I turn off screen share and take some final questions and find links for you?
Oh, Adam, this is very intimidating to kind of, I don't know, an old guy who's resistant to learning curves.
Sure.
Exactly how difficult or how steep is this learning curve for teachers? Because usually what I do is I find something like this and I take it back to my class and I say, well, you guys know I'm too stupid to figure this out. So I want you to figure it out for me and tell me if it's cool. Tell me if you like it. So your first assignment is to create a game. If that's all the directions I give them, are the kids going to be able to figure it out?
I think you'd probably have to send them to one of the game design courses to kind of understand how to do it. They could make a game, and I've seen lots of kids make games. I think the difference between making a game that's a good game and a game that's just it's a multiple choice question is the difference of being taught how to do it. It doesn't take long. You don't have to do all the courses, but I think a 5-minute mini lesson of showing them, and that's really what I would suggest, is show them or let them play some of the ready-made games, whether they be sample team building games, whether they be games around the content area. So Scott, what do you teach?
I teach history.
History, awesome. So take a look, there's some history games. We're doing a game, some of the games for Black History Month are gonna be coming out. We have games about historical figures, whatever is interesting to you. We could assign any of those games and say, hey guys, understand how this works. And here's the tool, go click on build a game, and then they're off to the races. But we've seen, and someone said something about pre-K. Does it support pre-K learners? We do have games that are teaching colors and shapes and different things like that. I would say we don't have tons and tons of content there, but the nice thing with pre-K is that it's also, with the ability to build those games quickly, that's something you could easily create for them. I would not say that the platform creation part is for pre-K kids, but students have surprised me at almost every level, so maybe.
Do you recommend kids? Sorry, do you recommend kids starting on the gaming side first and then going to creating?
I do. I think that playing a few games, because as I said in the beginning, it's a very different game experience than what students are used to or kids are used to in general these days. So having them play 2 or 3 games lets them understand like, oh, that's clever. Like the adding of colors is how you come up with the answer. It's not just like counting things or adding things. It's a very different concept, right? So experiencing and exposing them to, let's say, 2 or 3 games, if they each have a few locks, now they have like 10 or 12 different examples of how to think differently on this thing. And then they can kind of take that and translate that. We've seen most of the students start with mimicking the types of puzzles that you show them. So they'll latch onto an idea like that color blending thing, and then they'll relate it to whatever the topic is. And that's totally fine because they have to know that they have to understand the topic. They have to understand what clue to present. And then of course, understand how they themselves can formulate an answer in order to program it for someone else.
Amy's asking if there's a free subscription link.
So there is, if you go onto the platform, you search the word free, there are a few sample games you can play. What we've done recently during the last, just during the pandemic is we actually used to sell the kit with a 12-month subscription. We've split those into 2 separate products. And so we also are working on a extended trial experience. So there's not a free game builder, but we also do have a site. I can go, let me pull it up, where it's like 4 sample games or 5 sample games that you can start playing with to see, as Scott said, like, see if your kids like it. I've been in many different classroom situations where it's like, all right, let me buy this stuff for my students, and
Oh,
hold
Breakout
on, I'm
room's
gonna
gonna
lose the
close in
link.
10 seconds.